people out there, what would you say to all the Karens? You know, not to pick on any people actually named Karen.
You know who you are.
Well, what would you say to all of them who come in demanding everything go their way as if they're in a fine dining establishment and they're getting top of the line service,
but
they leave you a tip in the form of a great service?
Now I'm thinking about it. You know, you are onto something. I do feel like
I don't know if you can speak on this subject.
Oh, you know, I'm an all-around type of guy, you know. But from my experience, like one time I did go out with some friends, and unknown to us, they had an 18% gratuity tip, right? I'm like, okay, cool. We left like $20 for them, and I think we left $20 between 3 of us or something, right? 18% already on there. Why do we leave? We find out, we see it on our receipt, 18%. We went back in there, I'm not going to lie, and took that $20. But I do feel like...
Wow.
I can't lie. Wow. I can't lie. No, once it's on the table, you got to leave it there.
Nah.
Wow. Stealing tips after leaving the tips.
No, it's like the strip club. Once it's on the floor, the money... It's the
I'm
floor,
saying,
the money,
bro.
man.
Hey, let them have it.
Come on, man. They already ran my pockets up, so I might as well, you know.
No, I will say, as a server, that is something that you have to let be known. Unless it's on the menu or it's something that the host is letting be known. Just because a lot of people feel duped, a lot of people feel hoodwinked at times, you know, if they're not told about that 18 to 20%, honestly.
Well, reading is fundamental, though.
Yeah.
And most places that enforce it do have it written in bold.
Yeah, but
on every page.
I do definitely agree with Brody, because you don't want to, you know, end of the night, we're all checking out. Everybody's, why is the price different compared to what I calculated? It's going to cause problems. Once it causes problems, you know, eventually it'll get to the, this is not what I wanted. And, you know, it'll eventually leave a bad taste in everybody. And so it'll probably lead to them not tipping at all.
So then what criteria do you think have to go into deciding whether or not it's going to be enforceable gratuity or paying your workers a livable wage?
What do you think, Brody?
I mean, going back off what you said, what you're saying, eating out, at least in today's times, is a luxury. So personally, I don't think it's hard to justify, in my opinion, me going out if I have a set number I have to spend. I'd go get fast food or cook at home if I know that I'm on a budget and that's what I have to spend. Just because I feel like a lot of people that do have that budget, the tip is not calculated, you know? And that's how I feel on that subject.
And you did say something about if the managers or the company should take care of the servers or whatever when it comes down to if they don't make enough.
I mean, from a business standpoint, all restaurants work the same.
Right.
Servers have to make at least minimum wage on top of their $113 to $363 an hour, depending on maybe $525, depending on where you are. You have to make that state's minimum wage if you work in a restaurant, and that means that your company has to foot the bill to make sure you make minimum wage if you did not clear minimum wage. Right. That being said, most servers make more than minimum wage and do just fine in that regard. The issue at hand is, one, how it's made. Is it by restaurants enforcing gratuity so they don't have to foot the bill if somebody misses the mark? 2, paying them a livable wage and getting rid of tips altogether? Or 3, saying, or putting more emphasis on the fact that the patrons come in need to be aware what the actual tip percent guidelines are. Like, it's on every single receipt that you go to when you go to a restaurant, 10, 15, 20%. But I wonder how many people out there are actually educated enough to know how much you should be tipping your server. Right. You know, we have people out there, especially the older folks, you know, our parents' generation, who like to do, who think $5 and $10 is a great tip, even on a $300 tab.
Yeah.
You know, like, they earn that. Give them 15, like that's doing something.
The prices went up, Grandma.
Yeah, you know, they don't know. Inflation, they set back 30 years.
So, like, I feel, because of that, I feel like gratuity should be easily enforced, just to make sure it shakes out correctly. Now, that does mean if that happens, there should be a certain standard in place for people who work at those establishments. Because you should, if you're going to pay that, be expected to get great service.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I would say about fine dining is, I mean, just resume wise and the training that goes into it. Because, I mean, when you go to a normal restaurant, you might get through a week of training. A lot of these fine dining restaurants, it's 2 weeks of training. Whether you're a good server or not, you're not getting off of it. You know, and as well as the managers, they've managed a lot of different types of restaurants. And there's a certain type of poise that goes into the training comparatively to a less fine dining place, or just like your regular everyday restaurant. There's a lot different stuff that goes on into the training. That's why I feel like they're able to put that gratuity in and it be okay. But one thing I will say that that as far as when it goes into tipping is I wonder how they do it over in Europe where they don't take tips or other parts of the.
Well, they get paid a livable wage.
I know, but that's where I wonder, like, how expensive are the plates have to be here in order for a restaurant to pay not only the cooks, the dishwasher, but the servers as well a livable wage.
I definitely see what he is saying, because when I went over to Europe over the summer, we went out to this nice place right next to the palace, and the food was already expensive. But I think over there, because of their cost of living, everything is better over there than it is here. I think that most people are like, okay, you know what, let's just tip. It's like the better you live, the more you're probably going to spend. So I think they already have that mindset of these people are probably going to spend if they're coming over here. But in America here, what he was saying was, Lord, I lost my train of thought.
All I was saying was just that I know a lot of places in a lot of other parts of the world you don't have to tip.
Yeah, like Japan.
Yeah, like they won't take your money at all, even if you tried to. As hard as you can, they will not take your money.
And yeah, that does come down to cost of living everywhere. So
you just definitely cultured me. I didn't know that Japan wouldn't take it at all. I know that they frown upon it, especially in places like Germany and stuff like that. But again, most of those places pay a livable wage, and the cost of living is very different as well.
Right.
It doesn't cost as much to live in these places. If you're making, 45 grand a year in the UK, you're doing all right.
Yeah.
Especially for a single person, you're living well. But you also don't have health insurance to pay for.
And
all that stuff is free.
You also have to realize, that like the taxes are included in everything. So it's not like maybe if I spend $90 on this over there, $90 is $90,
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just like a different
Upfront.
system. Exactly.
So do you think we should adopt that system? Because again, that is a proponent of a livable wage, as opposed to forcing patrons to pay a gratuity. Because at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. Either the customers are going to pay for it, or the company's going to pay for it. Right. And before we say, well, the company is huge, this, that, and the third, they should pay for everything, understand that most companies, whether you like them or not, when you had that talking point about do they pay taxes, one, create enormous amounts of jobs, which allow you to then pump money back into the system, which then create more jobs. Two, still already pay a hefty labor tax on top of paying other taxes like health insurance, vacation salaries, and any other benefits that come along with that job. So you can't always ask the company to foot the bill. They should meet somewhere in the middle, yes. But what is a reasonable, livable wage? Because a mom and pop may not necessarily be able to pay the same way a fine dining does if they go to a livable wage. Fine dining, you might get $35 an hour. Especially if a plate is $500 a pop. But a mom and pop does a pizza joint, hey, that might be $10 an hour. Is that fair?
I think what you were saying about how people expect companies to, just because they're bigger, to adopt that policy, I disagree on that, because you have to realize at the end of the day, one, they have taxes, two, cost, three, at some point something might go wrong in the business where they'll have to, change it up, fix something that's costing money. And on top of that, they also have raises. If you want to be able to get a raise in that company, you're not gonna. If you adopt that system, it's probably not gonna be possible because they're gonna be going out of pocket to pay this on a slow day, pay somebody on a really bad day, whatever the case is. And I think really it benefits everybody if people just stick to the minimum wage and the tip system instead of the company covering the cost that they've lost on. Because at the end of the day, I think you're still going to make enough to cover that minimum wage regardless. Yeah.
So that's where the tricky slope comes down to, because everything you're saying I agree with. Just playing devil's advocate here, the middle wagers, the minimum wagers say, hey, we need a livable wage, right? And that's primarily what we're talking about. But what is a livable wage?
Exactly.
Is it a percentage of what the cost of living in your area is? And then you do that? Because I know in some places like California, Massachusetts, New York, it can get as high as $18 an hour, and people are still poor. And the reason that is because the minute you jack up the livable wage, well, now all these businesses have to somehow come up with the excess money to pay for it. So your insurance is getting cut in a lot of places, or they're cutting corners, or they're not hiring as many people, or there's job scarcity. We have all these job openings, but can't nobody get hired because I can't afford to pay 12 people $18 an hour. I could afford to pay 6 people 12, but now I can only afford to pay 3 people 18. So does that have a place in the restaurant industry? And also, is that the reason why a lot of restaurants are going towards the use of AI?
Oh, with the whole, self-serving restaurants and all that.
Yeah. Using the robots, placing your order and just picking it up yourself.
I think at the end of the day, the person themselves aren't doing much. But at the end of the day, somebody has to be able to program whatever it is, the robots. I think you should at least be able to tip if you're going out. I think that's just an expectation. Like, even if it's a little bit. Because at some point, everybody has to get paid. It keeps the money flowing. It keeps the economy going. If more people spend more money, it's better for everybody. That's just how I see it. And I think the more the people spend at the end of the day, it's going to want more people to come in, to get hired, whatever it is spent, etc. You know what I'm trying to say.
What do you think? What do you think?
As far as the robots go?
Yeah, as far as AI infiltrating the restaurant.
For me, I understand it, but I feel like it's still very early to really know what's really up about it. Just because you have to think about it, okay, is the cost of maintenance on my sushi revolving sushi line, is that going to cost more than me just hiring servers that are able to serve the sushi?
Exactly. And yeah.
Or, I mean, for example, the robots, for example, every single time it needs a new wheel or I have to change a battery, and just adding up those costs, I feel like it's still a little too early from when they drop to really know, okay, how cost effective is this versus having a server.
Exactly.
Because at the end of the day, human connection is something that you can't buy.
True.
And I mean, I don't know if anybody's ever seen any videos of somebody being alone for a long time, but people go crazy. Human connection is something that's very needed in the world. And the service industry, the hospitality industry is a very big part of all that.
I mean, yes, but there are many times I see people come in who are by themselves and just having a good conversation with somebody to feel like they belong to a tribe. I mean, you look down, oh, poor them, but a lot of times they're good people who just need good conversation, and they like the fact that people know their name and know who they are. But those people tip because they understand the value of connection. And even though you are working for a tip, it goes beyond that when you're interacting with those types of people. And it's a mutual relationship. What about those people that come in who just expect to be treated like you're in a fine dining and then just poop on you and then give you $1?
I mean, me personally, to keep myself positive, I'd personally say that's just the nature of the beast, there's always going to be your days where no matter how good you are, you might get a $3 tip. You might even get a zero on there. And but there's always that one table that comes back and rounds everything out. And that's one thing I stand by, and one thing that I try to tell myself every single time I'm on the floor for sure.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, I'm still standing on business. I think that gratuity should be enforced across the board. Not like a 30% gratuity.
No, that's insane.
No, I think there should be a minimum percentage of gratuity, and then they can tip beyond it.
Right.
So I think a minimum of 10% should be added to every check
Yeah.
as a starting point.
Here's the thing about 10%.
It's not shown as gratuity. It's shown in the pricing. It's shown in the pricing of the plates from a company standpoint, right? So say the meal is $9.99. You add that 10%. Call it that 99 cents. That 99 cents for every plate that goes out on there goes to the server.
I mean, y'all let us know in the comments, as a customer, how would you feel knowing that the tip is included with the price, even though it's not shown as a tip? Because, I mean, I feel like maybe half of people might feel a little duped. The other half might feel better about it. It's just like, oh, it's all in one package, you know? I don't know. I feel like it might be a little controversial.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I feel like some people might be also stingy to spend more money, because I think realistically, if you put a gratuity tip on there, you're gonna see sales start to go down. Oh, I had to spend a certain amount of money, and imagine somebody comes in, they don't have as much money, and they still have to eat. Then what are they gonna do?
Because that's going to happen regardless. Mm-hmm. So if you teach them that this is what the price is going to be, then they know whether or not they can afford it, right?
Yeah.
And to your point, how many restaurants we go to that have some type of service charge on everything to go, and people still tipping the to go?
Yeah.
You didn't pay for everybody's supplies, and then you're still tipping. Right. I say, why not a similar system when it comes to serving? If you're that good of a server, you should be able to overcome that.
But at the same time, servers that are that good isn't something that you come by very often.
True.
In a normal restaurant, there might be 2 to 3 out of 15.
Right. And I think going back to what you said about a real connection with the server, I think that's one of the best things you can ever have. One, it brings liveliness to a restaurant. If you really want a good community within a restaurant, I've seen, as a host, I've seen countless of people come back years after years, just to see one person. That's business right there. On a slow day, let's put out just random people. On a slow day, if you have only regulars, you're still making more money than expected. Because, these people are going to spend money, they're going to tip good most of the time. And, that just creates business flowing. People are going to come back. Oh, I love this place. Oh, I love this place because of this person. I'm going to tip this person so and so and so. It just depends on the type of person. And if you're sitting by yourself, you would want to have that experience of talking to somebody. Like, Brody said earlier. You don't want to go to a restaurant. Nowadays it might be cool if a robot came up to you and be like, oh, I'm here to serve your food. But I feel like if you have that connection, one, they're going to tip, of course. Two, it's just, in the future, you're going to be like, wow, I really wish I had somebody to talk to instead of, just clicking buttons. I think most people would feel that way.
But we also, I agree with you, but I feel like people like New Age, and I feel like society has been gearing up for a long time to be by themselves. A lot of the things that we do now are predicated on being by yourself. We don't have social interactions the way we used to. We have a lot of keyboard warriors. Even when people do go out together, they're selfieing in the corner, even though there's 8 people around them.
Right.
So it's yes, people still value connection, but I think that the type of connection also matters. And I think a lot of the connection that they're desiring is just to say, yeah, somebody's there. Yeah. I don't want to interact with you. I just want to know that you're there. And I feel like a lot of guests treat servers that way. When you go up to a table, oh, you're there. Like, I'm doing you a favor sitting down here and I'm treating you like that because I know that I'm going to pay you and you don't eat unless I tip you well. And I feel like people take advantage of that. You know, they look for the worst thing to happen or the simplest thing to happen. And then they say, you know what, I'm not going to tip, even though you were great the entire time, and then use it against you. And so I feel like in those kinds of instances, there should be a way for a server to recoup that, because that's not the company's fault. That is entirely the person who came in with a nasty attitude with the intention of treating said server that way. I don't know. I could be wrong. Let me know, chat.
But also at the same time, after being at different types of restaurants, there's a lot of things I have to do with the restaurant as far as what kind of people you attract to your restaurant.
True.
There's a certain type of people that go to certain types of restaurants. And, you know, that's honestly why I think that it really does... It really does matter as far as what type of customer base you're building for your restaurant, in my opinion.
That's fair. That's fair. Chat, let us know what you think. Should restaurants be allowed to enforce gratuity on the patrons? Should the restaurants do a livable wage? Should there be a variation between the two? Does AI play a role in how that's decided? Who knows? But let's get back on the 86 Chronicles to talk about it. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Join us every week as we launch a new episode of the 86'd Chronicles. Like, subscribe, and comment below. Ever feel like you're stuck in the daily grind of the service industry? Well, let me introduce you to the 86'd Chronicles, the podcast that's like your best friend who totally gets it. This isn't just any podcast. It's a lively conversation where we dive into the real stories, the wild experiences, and the behind-the-scenes chaos of working in service. Whether you're a bartender, server, or just someone who loves a good laugh, this podcast is your go-to for relatable tales that'll have you nodding along. Each episode is packed with insider tips, hilarious anecdotes, and the kind of camaraderie that reminds you you're not alone in this. Trust me, you'll feel like you're right there in the booth with us, sharing a drink and swapping stories. So, if you're ready to turn your work woes into a good time, hit that link and join the fun with 86'd Chronicles. You won't regret it.